We are coming to you with urgent breaking developments out of northern Israel. And what is unfolding on your screens right now is not a continuation of what this conflict has looked like until this moment. It is a shift, a geographic expansion of Iranian targeting that carries consequences extending far beyond the city now absorbing the strikes. Haifa is burning. Videos are arriving from multiple directions simultaneously. From the Port District, from the Carmel Ridge neighborhoods overlooking the bay, from the refinery corridor to the south of the city, from mobile phones of residents who were in the streets when the sirens began and did not reach shelter in time. The footage shows a city under sustained, heavy bombardment, fires visible across multiple districts at once, explosions audible in rapid succession, the kind of simultaneous multi-point impact pattern that does not come from a small or poorly coordinated salvo. This is concentrated, deliberate, and it is ongoing as we speak. And the Patriot is silent. The Iron Dome is silent. Or if they are firing, the missiles are arriving at their targets before the intercept can be completed. The defense architecture over Haifa has failed. That is what the footage is showing. Not struggling, not degraded, failed. Let us address immediately why Haifa is different from everything that has come before in this conflict. Because the choice of Haifa as the target of a strike at this scale is not random. It is not opportunistic. It is a strategic decision by Iranian planners that communicates something specific about what Iran is targeting, about what it understands to be the load-bearing infrastructure of Israeli military and economic power, and about how far into the conflict's escalation ladder Iran is now prepared to climb. Haifa is Israel's industrial capital. That phrase, industrial capital, is not a description of a city that manufactures consumer goods. It is a description of the concentration of critical national infrastructure that exists within the Haifa metropolitan area and that has no equivalent anywhere else in Israel. The Haifa Bay complex is home to Israel's largest oil refinery, the Bazan Group facility, which processes the majority of Israel's petroleum products and supplies the fuel that Israeli military and civilian systems depend on. The port of Haifa is Israel's primary deep-water commercial port, the gateway through which the majority of Israel's imported goods, including military equipment and humanitarian supplies, flow. The naval base adjacent to the port is home to elements of the Israeli Navy, including the Sa'ar-class missile corvettes that have been operationally active throughout this conflict. Striking Haifa is not striking a city. It is striking the fuel supply, the logistics infrastructure, the naval capability, and the industrial base that sustain an Israeli military campaign. Iran's targeting planners did not select Haifa because of its population. They selected it because of what losing it means for Israel's capacity to continue fighting. That is the dimension of tonight's strikes that every military analyst watching this footage is processing with maximum urgency. Now let us address the defense failure. Because in Haifa, the failure of the Patriot and Iron Dome architecture is not simply a repetition of what has occurred in Tel Aviv and other theaters of this conflict. It is a specific operational failure that has specific causes that deserve direct examination. The Patriot batteries covering the Haifa corridor were positioned and configured based on an assessment of the threat vectors most likely to be used against northern Israeli targets. That assessment factored in range, trajectory, and the historical pattern of Iranian missile use in this conflict. It was not a negligent assessment. It was built on the best available intelligence about what Iran was doing and what it was capable of. The problem is that the assessment was built on information about what Iran had done, and Iran changed what it was doing. The missile systems arriving over Haifa tonight are showing terminal approach geometries that are inconsistent with the threat profiles the Patriot engagement solutions were pre-computed for. When a Patriot battery's fire control radar acquires an incoming missile, it runs a continuous engagement calculation, updating the predicted intercept point as new tracking data arrives, cueing the interceptor to launch with enough lead time to reach that predicted point. That calculation works with high reliability against missiles whose behavior matches the parameters the system was trained and configured to engage. It does not work against a missile that in the final phase of its approach is somewhere other than where the calculation predicted it would be. And the Iranian missiles striking Haifa tonight appear, based on the impact pattern and the absence of successful intercepts visible in the footage, to be doing exactly that, arriving somewhere other than where the Patriot's fire control predicted, leaving the interceptors reaching an empty coordinate while the warhead reaches its target. Iron Dome was never the answer to this threat. We have said it in previous coverage of this conflict, and the physics have not changed. Iron Dome was designed around a specific operational problem: the suppression of short-range, slow-moving, unguided rocket fire from Gaza and Lebanon. Its radar, its Tamir interceptor, its engagement timeline, all of it was optimized for that problem. The problem arriving over Haifa tonight is not that problem. It is a faster, more precise, maneuvering threat arriving from a different direction, at a different altitude, along a different flight path, against a city whose geography and industrial layout create a target density that short-range rocket fire never had to engage with precision. Iron Dome cannot solve what is happening over Haifa tonight. It was not built to. The layered architecture that was supposed to cover the gap between Iron Dome's ceiling and the high-end Iranian threat, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3, the upper tier of the Israeli missile defense system, has been under sustained operational pressure throughout this conflict. 60-plus waves of Iranian missile fire have consumed interceptor stocks at a rate that the resupply chain was not designed to match at this tempo. What remains of that upper tier over the Haifa corridor tonight is not the full, freshly stocked architecture that existed before this conflict began. It is a depleted, operationally stressed remnant of that architecture, and it is not stopping what is arriving over the city. There is a second dimension to the Haifa strikes that extends into the international arena in a way that will generate consequences beyond the immediate military picture. Haifa's port and the naval installation adjacent to it have been the logistics gateway for a significant portion of the military resupply that American and allied nations have been providing to Israel throughout this conflict. Equipment, munitions, components for the defense systems that have been sustaining Israeli operations. The physical flow of that material has moved, in substantial part, through Haifa. If Iran's strikes tonight have damaged the port infrastructure, the refinery complex, or the naval installation to the degree that the footage suggests is possible, if the functional throughput of Haifa as a logistics hub has been degraded or eliminated, then the downstream effect on Israeli operational capacity is not measured in days. It is measured in weeks and months. That is what Iran understands. That is why Haifa is the target tonight, and not a military base in the Negev or a radar installation in the Central Theater. Iran is not trying to kill Israeli soldiers with tonight's strikes. It is trying to cut the supply line that keeps Israeli soldiers fighting. The American position in this theater is now confronting a question that the architects of this operation did not adequately price into their planning assumptions. The question is this: what does the United States do when the infrastructure through which it has been sustaining an allied military campaign comes under direct, sustained, and apparently effective attack by an adversary whose missile capability has repeatedly exceeded the assessed parameters? There is no clean answer to that question tonight. Escalating American strikes against Iran to suppress the missile capability that is hitting Haifa requires a targeting depth and a strike tempo that carries its own escalation risks. Accepting the degradation of Haifa's port and refinery infrastructure as an operational reality requires adjusting the entire logistics architecture of American and Israeli operations in a way that takes time this conflict may not allow. And doing neither, continuing the current operational pattern while Haifa burns, produces exactly the footage that is arriving right now. A major allied city absorbing strikes, American Patriot systems failing to stop them, and an American administration that told the world it was winning, watching its allies' industrial capital absorb precisely the kind of damage that winning is supposed to prevent. The Israeli public is processing tonight's footage alongside everything that has come before it in this conflict. And what the accumulation of that footage now communicates, Tel Aviv, Nahariya, Ben Gurion Airport, and now Haifa, is something that no official statement has been able to fully contain. It communicates that Iranian missiles reach Israeli cities, that the defense architecture built to prevent that reality has not prevented it, that the costs of this conflict, which were presented as manageable and as falling overwhelmingly on the Iranian side, have been distributed in a manner that the Israeli population was not prepared for. Haifa was not supposed to be in these images. It was not supposed to be the city whose refinery smoke is visible from the sea, whose port district is receiving direct impacts, whose residents are sheltering beneath a sky that the Patriot was supposed to have made safe. The conflict has arrived here anyway, because the missiles Iran is firing do not stop at the boundary of what the defense architecture was designed to defend. They stop at their targets. And tonight their targets are in Haifa. Every capital watching this coverage is conducting its own assessment right now. Every nation that has stationed forces in the region, every government that has sold weapons or provided intelligence to one side or the other, every country that has been quietly hoping this conflict would resolve before its own interests were drawn directly into it. All of them are looking at the footage from Haifa and updating their calculations. The refinery, the port, the naval installation, the city absorbing strikes that American-built defense systems are not stopping. Those calculations will produce decisions. Some of those decisions will become public, some will not. But all of them will be shaped by what is visible on your screen right now. We are monitoring all incoming footage from Haifa, from the broader northern theater, from Iranian military communications, and from every diplomatic channel that remains functional in a conflict that has now struck the industrial heart of Israel. Haifa is still under attack. The fires are still burning. And what the city looks like when the strikes stop will determine what kind of war this is, and what kind of war it is still capable of becoming. Stay with us. We will not leave this coverage.